Good evening, indie community, and welcome to the first episode of SPLAM. That is Self-Publishing Like a Motherfucker, the not-at-all safe-for-work podcast where we interview fellow self-published authors and pick their brains for the secrets to their success. My name is Robert Bevan, and with me this evening is my co-host, Claire Taylor. Say hi, Claire.
Hello.
Joining us in the virtual studio is part of a rotating panel of co-hosts from the Authors and Dragons podcast. Tonight we have Rick Gualtieri and Steve Wetherill. All right, I'll start. My name is Robert Bevan. I self-publishedly write the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. That's why I'm relevant. Claire?
Okay, why am I relevant? Well, let's see. I write under 3 pen names. I've been doing this full-time for a couple years. I have 20 books out, I think. And I make my living off of this, and it hasn't killed me yet.
Good reasons.
Solid indictment.
Steve, Rick?
You go first, Rick. You were more impressive than me.
Oh, great. Now you're going to make me look bad. My name is Rick Gualtieri, and I've been self-publishing for about 7, I think we're going on 8 years now. I'm full-time these days. I have over two dozen books. Probably none of them are relevant to anything, but, I'm on social media a lot, and if you're on social media and you're loud enough, goddamn it makes you look smart.
I've got to do my best to prove Rick wrong on that point. My name's Steve Wetherill. I guess I'm representing the part-time self-publisher in this A-team of publishers. I'm that Hispanic guy who didn't come in till like the very last season.
Is this the first racism on SPLAM?
That wasn't racism. That was unwise cultural appropriation. Maybe, I don't know. I'll have to rewatch A-Team. But yeah, I've got a half a dozen books. I am, for the most part, self-published, but also lucky enough to be represented by Small Press Falstaff Books.
All right, well, that's introductions, and I guess it doesn't sound like anybody had much news to share, so I guess we'll jump right into our guest. This week for you, dear listeners, we have our first guest, Barry Hutchison. Welcome, Barry.
Hello, how you doing?
Great. It's Tuesday, after all.
Yeah, it's Tuesday night here. It's because obviously I'm in Scotland, and it's 10:30 at night when we're recording this.
It's always night.
It's always night in Scotland, yeah. Perpetual darkness.
I guess Steve's the nearest one to you then.
Yeah, dark where I am too. Maybe slightly less dark.
Well, that's good to know, because Steve, I might need you to drive up there and just kick Barry's ass, because I got a bone to pick with you, Barry, only because you have a motherfucking Wikipedia page.
I do have a Wikipedia page.
I know, and I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, when I tried to get a Wikipedia page, they came back to me and they're like, "Who the fuck are you, loser? Go away."
Yeah, I don't know where my Wikipedia page came from. It just appeared. I don't know who does it. It's just popped up out of nowhere, kind of maybe a couple of years ago, I think. Don't know where it came from. So thank you, whoever does it. Just don't make stuff up about me.
I got a bone to pick with you too, actually. I saw on Facebook. Yeah, well, I just saw on Facebook today that you're losing a lot more weight than I am.
Yeah. I've been on a big fitness kick since August, partly inspired by my kind of Space Team fans, or egged on by my Space Team fans.
Inspired by your Space Team. I wish this guy was less fat.
Yeah, how did that come about?
Yeah, no, they didn't motivate me in the first place. I mentioned to them that I kind of wanted to lose a bit of weight, and they have been very supportive, alternating between words of encouragement and just calling me a fat fucker. They've been really good. So I've lost 42 pounds, since August.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Thank you.
While we're talking about all the things that you do better than us, tell us a little bit about your background with writing and or self-publishing.
Okay, well, I've been traditionally published for about 10 years. I've been a full-time author for 10 years. My first series of books was picked up by HarperCollins in the UK, picked up back in 2007, I think, and then because traditional publishing is so painfully slow, the first book came out in 2010. So 3 years after I'd written the first book, or 3 years after the deal was done for the first book. It was a horror series for children called Invisible Fiends, about a boy whose imaginary friend from when he's 4 comes back when he's 12 and tries to murder him in a variety of horrible ways. And I wrote it as one book, and I managed to land an agent with that manuscript, and she sent it to one publisher, which was HarperCollins, and they came back and said, "Great, can you do 6 books?" And I went, "Of course, I can do 6 books." Had absolutely no idea what happened in books 2 through to 6. And then they said, "Great, can you do document for our meeting this afternoon, which explains the plots of book 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, no.
So I went, absolutely I can. So I went away and I wrote basically kind of 1-paragraph descriptions. I came up with the plots for the next 5 books. And then they did the deal. And then I had to go and write those books. I had 6 months to write each book. And that was my kind of introduction to publishing, really. It was supernaturally easy. It was the first manuscript I'd ever sent anywhere, or first book manuscript I'd ever sent anywhere. It landed an agent. She then sent it to one place and got a publishing deal with HarperCollins, one of the big 5 publishers, and they asked for 6 times as many books as I had expected. So it was dream come true stuff. And then over the kind of next 10 years, I've worked with a variety of publishers, the problem with children's publishing and with most traditional publishing is it doesn't pay very much money. And I spent most of my time doing like events in schools, doing workshops, writing workshops and all that stuff. And that's kind of what paid my bills. And I got asked back in 2016 to do a workshop for high school children on how to publish your own work. And I had absolutely no idea, because as far as I was concerned, you typed a book in Word, you emailed it to an editor in London, and 6 months to 2 years later, a book arrived, and that was it. That was the entire process.
Being a dad in the 50s.
It's not far off, actually. So I thought I'll figure this out, and I self-published a horror kind of serial called The Bug. On Kindle.
Now, was that also for children, or is this?
No, it was very much not. It was very, very full on bad language, sex and violence. It was almost like a release from 10 years of writing for children.
Well, that sounds like our horror series for children.
So that completely died to death, basically. It flopped quite spectacularly, but I kind of learned quite a bit doing it, and I thought, right, I could, if I did this properly and tried something else that I actually want to write and that I actually put some effort into, it might do all right. And I wrote Space Team, which was the first kind of full-length novel that I self-published. And that came out in September 2016. Since then, book 12 comes out next week. I've done 3 spin-offs, and I've started a new series as well, and a short story collection from the Space Team universe. So that has now become my full-time income generator. Basically, my self-publishing business is now, well, very quickly became much bigger than the children's publishing stuff, the traditional publishing stuff, to the extent that 6 months after Space Team came out, 1 day of Space Team earnings was more than 6 months of traditional publishing royalties earned. So I kind of saw which way the wind was blowing. And I've now kind of devoted all my time and effort into the indie side of things. Does that answer the question? Midway through that, I realised I had no idea what question you asked.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was fascinating.
Talking for a long time with the hope that everyone else forgot as well.
It was a great answer regardless of what the question was.
So you said you have 12 full-length Space Team novels?
Yeah, book 12 comes out next week. It is finished. It's uploaded for the pre-order. So that's 12 of those. 3 the spin-off, 3 full-length Dan Deadman Space Detective spin-offs. Dan Deadman is a character who appears in the 5th Space Team book, I want to say. And then he has 3 books of his own. And I've started a comedy superhero series called, or the first book's called The Sidekicks Initiative, about it's basically the Justice League all die horribly, they all get murdered, and their sidekicks who have been out of the business for the last 20 years and are now kind of grown up and largely ineffectual, get dragged back in to become this new crime fighting team. One of them has mental command over butterflies. One triggers allergic reactions in people, and so they're basically just shit, So it's kind of mystery men, but with sidekicks.
Wait, but you said you put the first Space Team book out in 2016?
September 2016. Yeah.
So you've done 12 books in like just over 2 years?
Well, 16 books,
Jesus
including
Christ.
the Dan Deadman stuff. And in that time, 7 or 8 children's books as well of various lengths. I also write some animation stuff. I've done a couple animated series. I wrote for Super Mansion, which is, I think it's Adult Swim over there or something. And that's it's a stop motion done by the guys that did Robot Chicken. It's a stop motion superhero animation with Bryan Cranston as the main character and Chris Pine from Star Trek and various other people. So I wrote the comics of that, and then the guys over there said, "We really like your comic. Do you want to write an episode of the show?" And I said, "Okay." And I got to write an episode of the show. So so it's been a busy couple of years.
We need less impressive guests.
Well, yeah, I think everyone here is properly emasculated now. So let's talk about your process for it. I understand you kind of did your own covers for a long time. Maybe you're still doing your own covers. And you are writing a book about that?
Yeah, I'm doing because I was a children's author for all those years, I was absolutely penniless most of the time. So when I came to publishing Space Team, I didn't have any budget for anything. So I didn't have a budget for an editor, didn't have a budget for marketing, didn't have a budget for cover design. So I taught myself as much of it as possible, and I made my own covers for the first 9 Space Team books, I think. I now pay someone else to do it, and I got someone else to do the Dan Deadman covers and things. I made the first Sidekicks cover myself, but yeah, so I taught myself how to design covers, which was because I think if you don't have money, you can invest the time in learning it. You can't just jump on and do it, because the first attempts at covers I did were bloody awful. But I spent hours, dozens of hundreds of hours probably studying cover design, learning Photoshop and all that stuff, so I could create a reasonable cover at least. And I looked at it was quite difficult because it's really comedy science fiction. I mean, it is a proper science fiction story, but the comedy is the main part. So it was trying to find a way of conveying the comedy, and I ended up sticking a little speech bubble on the cover, which everybody who I showed it to criticized me for. But I was determined I was keeping it on there, and it seemed to work well. And for a little while, it started a trend of anyone writing comedy science fiction put a speech bubble on their cover.
I remember back on K-boards, you were showing off that cover, and I might have been one of the people saying, "What's with the speech bubble?"
Everyone said, "Don't worry about it." Everyone said that. Yeah.
Start a trend.
Yeah, that's how you know it's good. And comedy covers are very, very difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
I did the 99 design thing for my satire, and it was just a complete shit show.
Yeah. Comedy science fiction in particular, it's hard to think of any real standout covers from that kind of genre. Closest I can think is maybe like the first Red Dwarf book. It's the only sort of iconic one that stands out.
I have a follow-up question. So you're talking about bootstrapping, and you're talking about losing weight and getting healthy. How do you balance the time? And was there like a point where you stopped bootstrapping because you had more money than you did time and started hiring out, and so that you had time to, eat healthy, because that takes time to prepare and to, exercise and all that?
Yeah.
I think we've already assessed that Barry doesn't sleep. I mean, is that true? But you just don't sleep.
That's pretty accurate. I actually started getting up at 6 o'clock every morning. I thought I'll get up at 6 a.m. And I thought I'm not a morning person normally, and I thought I'll adapt to it quite quickly. And that was like 2 years ago now, and I still wake up crying when the alarm goes off and start like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing? But yeah, I quite consciously reached a point when I thought, And it wasn't even to do with my time. It was thinking, how can I make more money? You know, which parts of the process can only I do, and which parts can I farm out to someone else? Because when you're an indie publisher and you're just putting out your own books, the bottleneck in the process is you. It's how quickly you can do things. So I realized I can write books quite quickly, but I could write them even quicker if I didn't have to edit them myself, find all the typos, didn't have to design the cover and all that stuff. So I started farming that out to different places so that I could write, I could spend more time writing. Because I've always written really quickly anyway. I mean, it's not unusual to have kind of 10, 12,000 words in a day on a decent day. So I can rattle through them quite quickly. So yeah, I do that. But the rest of it is just kind of, I don't feel like I actually work that long these days. I usually get up at 6, I'll work to about kind of 8 a.m., 7:30, take my daughter to school, and then I have an office which I now rent, which means I can just lock myself away, and I kind of work there till 3 o'clock, and that's really me done for the day.
Jeez. There are probably like 2 types of listener interested in writing listening to us right now. The first one's going, wow, he makes that sound easy. And the second one just wants to kill himself.
Yeah, I'm in the latter camp.
I was going to say, and the third one is wondering who just popped a beer.
Also me.
I mean, that's a lot. I mean, what you've just said there for like 2 hours, that is a lot crammed in. I mean, sorry, not 2 hours. That would be impossible. Probably. Maybe you could pull off for
Not
2
for
years.
Barry.
Do you use dictation ever, Barry?
No, I don't. I have tried, and I just can't make it work. I think my writing brains are in my fingers, because I feel like my fingers are doing the work, and then I'm reading it as they've written it almost, which is a weird, like it's being channeled from somewhere. So when I try to do dictation and speak it, I just clam up and nothing happens. So that's a shame. But yeah, I mean, I know some people have a load of success with it, but it's never worked for me at all. Also, Scottish accent, and no dictation software in the world has got a fucking clue what I'm saying half the time.
The discrimination is real.
You know, it's a struggle.
What about, are you much of a planner? Because it sounds like you sort of just wing it through your stories, but do you...
Yeah.
How much do you plan?
Some of the books, the Dan Deadman Space Detective books, were kind of quite meticulously planned, because they're quite plot heavy. Well, I say meticulously planned. I wrote about 2 pages of notes, but those are quite plot heavy, because they're kind of mystery, noir detective mystery things with a foul-mouthed space leprechaun in them. But the Space Team stuff is far more kind of freewheeling, and it's like, ooh, I have a vague idea of the plot, which will be the blurb. I always write the blurb first, and then that kind of gives me enough of a template that I can go and write the book. I do find when I plan in more detail that I write more quickly. So I probably should dedicate, a couple of days of planning before each book, and then the books themselves would hopefully be written faster still. But I can enjoy, especially with Space Team. Space Team has become. I wrote the first Space Team book, or the idea for the first Space Team book came at kind of quite a difficult time for me. My mum was in hospital; she was dying of cancer, and we used to sit with her kind of every night in the hospital, and because we didn't know how long she was going to last, and I would sit in this uncomfortable plastic chair next to the bed in the hospital, and look at the window. This amazing view from the window, and it was late at night, and I would look at the stars, and I used to come up with all these little stories about kind of just sci-fi stuff, and that's kind of where Space Team was born from. And then I didn't do anything until a couple of years after she had passed away, and I decided I was gonna write them down. And every time I go back to Space Team now, it's kind of like hanging out with old friends. Really, it's a weird. Back in October there, when I was writing book 10, I want to say, a friend of mine who's the same age as me, he died of cancer really suddenly. And I was writing something else, but I had this urge to go back and write a Space Team book instead. And it was almost like kind of a form of therapy for me. And I was almost just sitting, just watching the characters doing their thing almost. Like I almost feel like I can't take responsibility for the books a lot of the time. I'm just kind of writing down these adventures that are happening to someone else, if you know what I mean.
You sick voyeuristic fuck you. Speaking of sick fuck stuff, do you ever have any instances where maybe like, you know, children are reading your, like, you know, your original series, and then, like, you know, and then they move on and they're like, oh, hey, let's do a look for them on Amazon, and then they find your stuff like Bug or so, where it's just like sex and cursing, and freak out?
Yeah, well, not that I know of so far, but possibly. I've changed. I've got 2 different author profiles on Amazon. For my children's stuff, I'm Barry Hutchison. For my adult stuff, I'm Barry J. Hutchison. I use the middle initial to differentiate.
No one will ever know.
No one will ever know. It's the greatest pseudonym on earth.
Well, no, I've heard of people doing that before, and apparently it's really effective.
Yeah, well, Ian Banks, and Ian M. Banks for his sci-fi stuff. And
loads of people who know who Ian Banks is have no clue he wrote sci-fi, and it's some of the best sci-fi that Britain's produced. So.
Kind of that Superman Clark Kent thing, isn't it? Just pop on the glasses and you hide in plain sight. So as far as I know, no one really follows. Although I don't know. I mean, Space Team is kind of, you know, a 12, 13-year-old could read Space Team without any problems. They are fitted with translation chips, which let them speak to every other species in the galaxy, and the corporation that creates them has built in a censorship mode. So all the swearing is censored and turned into other words. So fonk there's fonk, shiz, bamston. I can't remember what the rest of them are, but there's lots of, and that's going to become this little lingo with all the Space Team fans. So, you know, they'll call me they'll email me to call me a funk and shiznod and stuff like that.
Lose some weight, you funk and shiznod.
Fat veg.
That always gets me, that people are okay with you change one letter.
It's weird,
it blows my mind, and it makes me just so jealously, like, angry at you that you did that. Now I can't do that because I get in so much trouble for cursing, and I'm like, oh.
I think that's a proud sci-fi tradition. Some of my favourite made-up swear words come from sci-fi. Smeg comes to mind. That was a great one.
And Judge Dredd did Drock and all that stuff. Yeah, there was loads of stuff in Dredd.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you hear like frack or so? You know?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So kids could read Space Team. Well, kids of I'd say kind of young teenagers could theoretically read it without any problems. So that too much psychological scarring, I think. The Bug, not so much.
Just enough psychological scar.
Yeah, just enough.
Just the right amount.
Yeah, I use fuck all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Bob and me are way too fond of our fucks to give those up.
Yeah, well, I have them in the Sidekicks books. They swear, you know, properly, and everyone was very surprised. Everyone was like, "Ooh," because I had the audiobooks on. There's a big following for the audiobooks for Space Team, and loads of them have been playing them in the car with their kids. You know, and then the Sidekick stuff comes out and there's a lot of swearing and there's some sex in that, and so they're all scrabbling for the Audible app to try and shut it up.
Oh, it is amazing. I found how people just like they won't look like the sample. They won't read things like even putting like a disclaimer on it. Nobody reads.
Yeah, no, definitely not. No,
and then it's your fault.
Yeah. I get a lot of because the main character in Space Team is from Earth, and he blasphemes quite a lot. You know, he'll say, "Oh Jesus" or whatever, and I get quite a lot of hate for that. And I get a lot of emails because in the UK we don't care about that. We don't care at all. We say it all the time. But I've had a lot of complaints from American readers who've not been happy with that at all. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It's funny how like everybody has their triggers, and some of these triggers are stupid. It's like let's I just called like, you know, readers stupid. Now but the reality is, here's the thing: if you're reading a book and there's blood, guts, there's like, you know, there's like babies getting machine gunned down, and then suddenly there's like Jesus Christ, and that's like, oh no, I had to stop there.
Yeah, that's my limit. That's the line for me. Yeah, it's a strange thing.
You can murder that baby, but you know, if If you say that famous religious guy's name one more time, so help me.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing. Think about it. You can gun down legions upon legions of people, innocent or not. But the second you shoot the dog,
Yeah, absolutely. Never shoot the dog.
Ignoring the fact that, like, I remember explaining to somebody one time, they're like, "You killed the dog." I'm like, "No, I didn't kill the dog. You know why? Because the dog was fictional."
I actually had the third Invisible Fiends book. It's called The Crowmaster, and it has this imaginary friend who looks like looks at the Scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz, basically, is who's based on, but a kind of monstrous version of it. And there's a bit in that where a dog gets killed, and I got a letter from a woman. They said, "Dear Mr. Hutchison, my daughter has just read your third Invisible Fiends book, The Crowmaster. I am very upset about what happened to the little dog Toto," again named after the dog from the Wizard of Oz. And then it said, "I think this is disgusting what you have done, and I had a good mind to report you to the RSPCA." Now, the RSPCA is an animal charity in the UK, and I'm not sure if they handle imaginary dogs. I don't know if that's on their remit, is fictional animals. But she was going to report me to the RSPCA for killing an imaginary dog.
I'm of the mind that when somebody does something like that, you should take it as a badge of honor because you managed to convince them that dog was real.
Or they're a psychopath. One of the two.
Well, yeah. well, the fact that she hasn't hunted you down yet.
Yeah. She's playing the long game.
I mean, honestly, if someone plays the long game and ends up killing you, you just kind of have to applaud them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. If, you guys are my witnesses here, if I get found, murdered with an RSPCA badge stuck through my forehead, we all know who's responsible.
We all know you kind of gave him the okay, too.
Yeah, I've kind of brought it on myself. I'm welcoming it now, almost.
She's listening. She's listening to this right now, getting ideas.
Guess that makes it legal.
I think part of being an author and publishing, though, is just admitting that your odds of being killed in captivity have raised significantly.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I'm sure all you guys do too. I get some strange emails from people, some really strange emails from people who are maybe slightly too obsessed with the books, and those can be worrying.
That happens occasionally, but I guess I'm just abrasive enough online where people just don't bother.
Yeah, I'm far too approachable, I think. That's the problem.
You need to kill
I think it's safe to say
I'll sort it out.
Eventually somebody will end up wearing one of our skins.
Yeah.
I think the odds are in our favor there.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time.
I'm trying to keep mine small so no one can use it.
Yeah.
Shit, I guess I'm the one with the most wearable skin, I guess.
Well, that's a proud boast, isn't it? That's
size isn't everything, Bevan.
So Barry, I got money aside. Compare and contrast. Like, what do you like better? Like, the trad pub world or the indie world?
100% indie. I think over 10 years, I got to see some of the real negatives of the traditional publishing world. Now, I should preface this by saying that I worked with some amazing publishers and some fantastic editors, and really enjoyed working with them. But the process of traditional publishing is basically, I was quite lucky in that I was in the door, so I could, rather than write a new book and take that to an editor, I could just say, "Hey, I've had this idea, and it's X, Y, and Z, and it's for 12-year-olds, and it's a standalone book." And they would go, "Love it, great. We'll take that to the sales and marketing meeting tomorrow." And then at the sales and marketing meeting, the sales and marketing team, who have no real creative experience as such, go, "Well, standalones aren't big at the moment. We're really looking for something for 7-year-olds. So could you change it so that it's a series of 12 books for 7-year-olds? And can you make the main character a cat? Because cats are really popular." And so suddenly your idea is so transformed and is so kind of different to what you originally came up with that all desire and excitement to write it has gone. But you go, "Well, they will pay me money to write this, so this is what I'm going to write." And then you write it and they go, actually, funny thing, now all the bookshops just want standalones. So can we change it again and do? And so a lot of the creativity of traditional publishing is being completely eroded by that bottom line sales and marketing department. So that was always problematic. And then when I discovered indie, it was like, holy shit, I can write the books that I actually want to write. And no one will tell me how to do it. You know, no one will tell me that I can't do that. And so the freedom that I find from indie publishing, just it got me excited about writing again. After 10 years of slogging through that sort of machine, that process of, you know, being rejected for ideas and having to change them so drastically, it really recharged me creatively to be able to go, fuck it, I want to write this. And then I would write it. And then a month later, people were buying it and reviewing it and all that stuff, you know. So, yeah,
that's just it. Not only can you write the stuff that you want to write, but there are people out there that want to read it.
Amazingly, that was the biggest surprise for me, I think. Yeah.
Suck at sales and marketing.
But our focus groups have said cats.
Yeah, cats. Well, the problem is they're always chasing what was popular, you know, a month ago. So they always go, okay, new book's out. The cover's blue. All covers must be blue. And then, you know, they've gone, okay, we're doing that. And then by the time the book is actually in production, everyone's done with blue covers. And now blue covers don't sell. So they're like, shit, okay, what's the next trend we can hop onto? So rather than go, what's a good book? What's a good story? And let's sell that. They go, what can we jump onto, latch onto and try to copy? So that's why you got, you know, the Twilight kicked off all those kind of imitators and stuff, and it just feels a bit kind of, I don't know, just worn, and they're just, I don't know. It's not. I'm concerned for the future of traditional publishing. I don't know how long it's going to last. Well, I'm not that concerned because I'm now indie. So.
Well, there's no shortage of those bandwagoners on indie.
That's very true. Yeah. But you don't have to do it. It's up to you. You can do that, and you know, fair play to you if you want to do that. If you want to go and find something that's successful and imitate it, you know, that's a valid choice. But you don't have. There's no one forcing you to do it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it can be worse because, like, say you come up with, you know, a new genre or so that, like, you know, people aren't writing in. Whereas traditional publishing might catch up to you in, like, you know, in a year or so. With indie publishing, you know, it's like stepping into like a fire ant hill there, where it's like, hey, here's my original idea. That's original for about 30 seconds, and now there's 3,000 copycats out there. In the long run,
quality wins out in the long run, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it does. Yeah.
But also, I think that just the fact that indie publishers don't have to appeal to the largest possible audience. It can be niche, and we end up serving these really underserved niche groups. I mean, I'm just thinking about like the LGBT romance in itself. Like, no one was publishing that before indie, and now it's like there's this whole audience that really wanted that as their romance novels, and now they can have it. And the very niche sort of romance, and I mean, I write religious satire. No one would publish that.
I mean,
shit.
hell. I mean, one of my favorite success stories is Virginia Wade, who sold hundreds of thousands of books about basically some teenage girl in the woods getting fucked by Sasquatch.
There's an audience just waiting for that.
Yeah, it's like that same internet rule that says for everything there is a fetish. For almost everything you write, there will be an audience.
And you don't need that big of one to live on, you know?
No. There was no audience for my first book, The Bug. I don't know where they went. They didn't turn up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised because actually I've noticed that, like, you know what it is. I think horror is one of those things that goes in and out. But right now, nobody's writing in horror because everybody's is either fantasy or dark fantasy. Yeah. So
I know the exact problems with The Bug. I was being lazy, and I decided rather than write an actual book, I will write 6 kind of 15,000 word serialized parts, and then I thought that way I can test what's working. And it kind of jumps around all over the world. Some of it's first person, some of it's third person. I can completely sit down and analyze why The Bug didn't work. So I was able to go, right, don't do any of that stuff. but take the bits that the reviews were going, oh, enjoyed that or enjoyed that, because the people that read it seem to really like it, just no fucker reads it. So I thought, okay, take all the stuff out that's working and use that for my other books.
Yeah, I think that's good advice for any new writer is, the first few books you publish, just see them as an experiment, because you're probably going to fail in some really miserable ways, but you'll fail in different ways, and you can triangulate how you're shit. So that way, you can think of it sort of over the term of a career rather than just, oh, this is my first book, everybody's going to love it.
Triangulate how you're shit. I like that.
Yeah, trying. I hope I hit the ball this time.
So writing a book, that's half the battle. As our listeners are probably well aware, reaching the correct readers who want to read your book is sometimes the bigger challenge. How did you go about this with Space Team?
Well, when I first started, magic happened. It was great. I put out the first book, and it kind of did. For some reason, for 2 weeks solid, it sold 12 copies every day. It was at 99 cents, and it sold 12 copies every day. And I thought, okay, if you can sell 12 copies, I can sell 120 copies. That was my theory. That is kind of it's so selling 12 copies a day. I then thought, right, I'm going to put the price up, to $2.99 and see what happens. And then it went to sell 10 copies every day for the next 2 weeks, like exactly 10 copies. And I hadn't done any marketing at all, anything for it. People were just kind of finding it. And then I eventually did, when book 2 came out, because I hadn't really planned a book 2, I planned it to be a standalone book. And then I thought, well, people are buying it. If I could have another book out, then they'd have another book to buy. And so I wrote book 2 quite quickly. And then I did a free booksy on book 1. And it just seemed to really take off from there. I did for the first 7 months, I did no marketing whatsoever. And in the third month, the series made $7,500, and then it made $10,000 the following month with no marketing. I don't know. I wish
you're a terrible example.
I know. I feel bad for our listeners. Like, all right, the secret is wait for magic.
Yeah, the secret is Barry is a Scottish leprechaun. He's got.
So I wish I knew. I did say that one free book. See what. No, the other thing I did was I got, prior to the book coming out, I thought I'm going to be really nice to lots of people who are writing in the same genre in the hope that they will mention my book when it comes out. And I don't know for sure, but I think some of them shared it in the social media and maybe told the mailing list. So but no one really told me that that's what they were doing. I was in various Facebook author groups, and I made myself as useful as I possibly could in the kind of 3 months before the book was ready to go. And that's when, and then I kind of said, oh, my book's out now. Look, here it is. Look at this thing. And I think some of them shared it. But
how nice are we talking about? Like blowjobs or what?
Not that nice. I mean, I'm not far off, but
I'm just going to write this down. Don't be a prick and alienate people. All right, I think I see what I've been doing wrong here.
Turns out that's a bad thing. So yeah, because I didn't have any experience of indie, so I couldn't really advise on that. But I could kind of advise people on what I knew about traditional publishing. I've been writing professionally for 10 years, so I could talk a bit about writing advice in general, and just kind of try to make myself quite helpful. But I'm quite a helpful person anyway, normally. So it wasn't like it was being really cunning and strategic. I just kind of took part and joined in some communities and tried to make myself useful. And that seemed, I think, to pay off, that people were happy to kind of repay the favor. Even people I hadn't helped directly, they'd maybe seen that I was helping people out, and they went, okay, we'll give this guy's book a push. So just be nice to people. That's my advice.
I think also it shouldn't be understated that you wrote a very good book. And it's hard to write. Yeah, it's hard to write comedy. I really enjoy Space Team. So it's hard to write comedy, and you wrote it well. And part of that is because you've been writing before. This wasn't, your first one. So, and that's not to discredit you. That's just to encourage people that,
yeah, absolutely.
Their first one's not going to be the blockbuster, but working at it and producing a good book does create word of mouth.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Yeah.
Yeah, Claire's got a good point. Here's the thing. When I share a book, first of all, I obviously don't want to share a book by somebody I hate. There's a big one. But at the same time, I've gotten dinged before by by sharing books where people are like, this book sucked. Why the fuck are you sharing it? So that combination of being a cool person, but also somebody talented enough to to put those words to page. It's really in this day and age where you go on Twitter and you say the wrong thing and an avalanche of hate drops on you. Yeah, it's some people forget the whole concept of talent, but also just being a generally good person.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's my experience. Just be nice, and nice things will happen. That's how the world works, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, okay. So on that note of nice, because we're motherfuckers. What has been your worst experience self-publishing?
Oh, worst experience. That first book. I think getting so excited about that first book, the bug, because I've been doing it for 10 years. I thought this is going to be a piece of cake. I'm going to put this out. Riches will come flooding in. And then it didn't, and then I kind of put it out, and it was kind of quite humbling in a way. It was that sort of reminder that, you're maybe not as good as you think you are. So that was kind of a big kick in the balls, really. That flopped quite so badly. For some reason, though, even though it flopped really badly, I thought I'd read people talking about starting a new series and setting it within the same universe and stuff, so you could carry readers over to your new series. And for some reason, I decided that I had to do that with Space Team, even though literally a dozen people had read the bug over the course of 6 months. I thought I need to take this 12 people with me when I start the new series. So the bug is actually kind of a prequel to Space Team. Even though it's a completely different genre, completely different style of writing and everything, it's kind of a prequel to Space Team. So that was the biggest kind of sense of failure in it all, really, that died on its arse quite so badly. But from it, I've tried to kind of grow other stuff.
Actually, I think it's cool, and I think you're right. It's that whole concept of an interconnected universe. Something. If I could go back in time, I would kick my ass, because I think I have 17 different universes.
Yeah. Well, I've got two now. I've got the Space Team book. I've got that, and then the Dan Deadman book is set in Space Team universe. I'm doing a new spin-off called Contogar, Bounty Hunter, and Occasional Babysitter, and that comes out in May, and that's in the Space Team universe. So it's Space Team universe and the Sidekicks stuff. Sidekicks is a separate universe. For the minute, I might find a way to cross them over.
Why the fuck not?
Yeah, might as well. It's the joy of indie, isn't it? That you can do all these things. You can go, I'm creating a massive universe where, I'm doing my own Marvel Comics type thing. You can't do that in traditional publishing.
Yeah. Unless you're Stephen King. Yeah. Retroactively, all these books are connected. Fuck you.
All right. Well, any other questions, guys?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like Barry's like magic here. It's like trying to come up with something hard for him, and
imagine what the questions were, because I forget them all instantly. I have the same problem when I'm talking in schools. Kids ask me a question, and I just talk and talk and talk, and cover my entire career until such times as they go, I think that was the answer to the question I asked, and then they shut up. So I think I've probably just talked through everything, really.
That was the answer to the next 6 questions I had.
And before you ask, God damn it.
One thing I'm wondering is how much of your time is spent on marketing now versus writing?
It depends what you really call marketing. I spend maybe kind of 10-15 minutes looking over my Facebook adverts in the morning, do some stuff on AMS ads, but for me a lot of the marketing is just kind of building the community around Space Team. There's a Facebook page, but there's a Facebook a space team Facebook group, which is really active, and the guys are all creating their own content and they're doing all kinds of stuff. And the likes of that is more kind of building that side of it is kind of what I prefer, rather than going create a new advert and put that out. So kind of building the community bit is marketing, but it's more fun than just the usual stuff. So I maybe in total an hour a day on marketing stuff. I probably should do more. I could probably do it so much better if I actually sat down and thought about it. But it doesn't interest me, ads and stats and all that stuff. And I kind of much prefer doing the writing part and interacting with the fans. So I do an email newsletter roughly once every 2 weeks. And that's again evolved. It started off quite salesy, and it was look at all these fancy images, and now it's kind of just down to basically just plain text and just me going, hello, this is what I've been doing this week, and by the way, there's a book coming out, you might want to buy that. So it's become quite chatty, and loads of people will reply to me, and I'll spend a bit of time replying to them. And I actually there was a day last year, and I think this is what probably the most important day or the most kind of special thing that's happened to me since I've gone indie. I had a really bad day. It was just shortly after my friend had died last year, and I got 2 emails in reply to a newsletter I sent out, and one of them was from a woman whose teenage daughter had died in January, and I since found out that she was I think she died in a quite unpleasant way. I won't go into any detail. But she'd sent me an email to say, my family got a fright today because I laughed out loud for the first time since my daughter died, which was just the most mind-blowing email to receive. It was. And then the same day, I got an email from a guy who told me that he was an alcoholic and he'd been going to kill himself, but he was listening to one of the Space Team audiobooks. I must shout out to Phil Thrawn, my narrator on all the Space Team books, who's amazing. And he was listening to a Space Team audiobook, and he said, I wanted to find out how it ended so I didn't kill myself. And then he was getting help and had been off alcohol for a couple of weeks and was getting to see his son and stuff like that. And it was just the 2 most amazing, to both coming in the same day, and a day when I was feeling really shit, was just the most mind-blowing thing. And I think that's, to me, that's what I like about building the community around the books and being accessible and being open. Way more than, here's my new Facebook ad and please buy the book.
I actually did have another question, and I guess, again, you kind of answered it maybe, but I was going to say, you're 12 books in, did you have an end for Space Team in sight? But now I guess fucking better not, huh?
At the end of book 1, that was it. And then I thought, well, I'll do 3. I'll do a trilogy. And now they won't let me stop. I do little kind of surveys going, what should I do next? Should I do Sidekicks too? Should I do another Dan Debman? They're all like, shut the fuck up, write another Space Team book. Get it done now. So I'm kind of, even if I wanted to stop, I don't think I'm allowed to. I think I just have to keep going. But the series is structured in kind of such a way, that makes it sound like it's all planned. The way the series is basically they could go on forever, until such times as I get bored of them. And I, so far, see no sign of getting bored of them.
That's lucky for a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
So how do we find you online? Because this community sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah,
and
well,
stuff,
if you go to Facebook and search for Team Space Team, you will find the Facebook group. There's a Facebook page which is just Barry J. Hutchison Books. Website is Barry J. Hutchison, and you can find everything through there. But start at Team Space Team, and you can't really go far wrong.
Yeah. What are you working on now?
What I'm working on now, I'm starting on the second Sidekicks book, the Sidekicks Resurgence, which is called.
So I guess that should be done in like 45 minutes?
Thereabouts. Well, it's 11:30 now. I need to get up at 6. So I'll get up at 6. I'll have a quick cup of tea, knock it out by about 8, and then take the rest of the day off.
I was going to say, he finished it in that pause between questions.
I got one last question. If you could go back in time and give any advice to your younger writer self, those many long 2 years ago, what would it be?
I think I would like to go back further. I'd like to go back to when indie or to when Kindle was first kind of starting up, because I was very much being in the whole traditional publishing world. It was when Kindle first started and the self-publishing stuff really started to take off. Everyone kind of thought, well, that's a fad that's going to pass. And I was really interested in it, but I thought, well, everyone says this is going to collapse, so I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing. I would love to be able to go back and go, let's start 2 years earlier and see where things would be today. So that would be my advice. Time travel back to 2012 or whenever Kindle launched, and start writing then.
Time travel back and just hand yourself a USB stick and just publish these now.
1 a month for the next year.
Yeah, there do seem to be a lot of people who started, very, very early Kindle and got in early and have these reputations. They're like, they have longevity, like 5-6 years, but it is such a huge boon to be able to have started early.
Yeah, although I met a couple of people. I was doing a talk with Amazon. I was doing an Amazon event, and there were a couple of authors there who had got in really early and were now really struggling. They're both now got full-time jobs because they didn't have to market. They did really well at the start, but they didn't have to have good covers. They didn't have to have the books edited. They didn't have to understand marketing. They could just literally put out this kind of bare minimum product. And because there weren't very many books, people bought them. So they did really well at the start. And now they can't shift a book because they don't understand how the whole marketing side of it works now.
You pretty much just took the comment I was going to have. Well, yeah, but not all of them. I mean, I was going to say the same. I know plenty of people that I used to see around cave boards, and they were they were the shit back in in 2013. And it's just now it's okay. You don't hear about it anymore. Well, it's not even, maybe it's cocky. Maybe it's the market changed, and the market is constantly changing.
Can we use the word cocky?
Yeah, I was just about to say. I'm not sure if they're allowed to be cocky anymore, and from a legal standpoint, but maybe that's what happened to them.
They are cockful.
That's a different thing, Rick.
All right. Well, we're coming up on an hour. Does anyone have any last questions or comments?
My comment is I think I've seen Barry around online since he started, because I remember the early days, him showing off those early Space Team covers, and it's just cool putting a voice to to somebody you see around every so often. So it's a pleasure meeting you, Barry.
Well, thanks so much. You too.
Yeah, and I hope that everyone listening now realizes that all they have to do to be a successful writer is to be a magical superhero.
You need magic fingers.
Yeah, so I'm not alone in my misery.
All right, well, thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for going through this experiment with us.
Yeah, first episode.
Growing pains, I know. You're our first.
It's a high bar.
You're our first. You're a cockful.
It's a privilege.
And thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on SPLAM. If you enjoyed this, we hope you'll like and subscribe and all that shit. And you'll join us next time for the next leg of our journey toward self-publishing like a motherfucker.